Hi, and welcome to The Last Witness. The Orderud farm sat quietly in the rolling countryside of Sørum, Norway, a place of long shadows and open fields, where the nights were still and the air smelled faintly of pine and earth. The kind of place where time seemed to move slower, where the creak of an old floorboard or the distant bark of a dog could carry for what felt like miles. It was the sort of place where nothing much happened, until one late spring night in 1999 when everything changed. By the time the sun rose, 3 people were dead. The killings would grip the nation, dominate headlines for months, and leave behind a tangle of questions that, even now, have never been fully answered. Almost a year earlier, on a warm summer morning in Oslo, Anne Orderud Paust was on her way to work. She was a respected government official, working as personal secretary to Norway's Minister of Defense. Her job was demanding, high profile, and as she was about to discover, dangerous. That morning, she approached her car and noticed something odd beneath it. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. A shape that didn't belong. Police were called. What they found was chilling. A 500-gram Solex explosive device, wired and ready to detonate. The discovery made national news. Who would want her dead, and why? The investigation went nowhere. No arrests, no suspects. But the danger wasn't over. Just weeks later, another incident. This time, a propane gas tank, doused in gasoline, left in the stairwell of Anne's apartment building. The vent was open. If it had ignited, the entire building could have been blown apart. Again, no one was caught. Anne and her husband, Per Paust, a senior official in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, decided to leave Norway for a while. They spent a few months in New York where Per worked as a temporary consul general. It was a chance to breathe, to put an ocean between themselves and whoever was targeting them. But in January 1999, they returned home. And soon after, tragedy struck again. Per was diagnosed with cancer. It was aggressive. He died in May, just 2 weeks before the murders. Around May 15th, an anonymous call came in to the authorities. The voice on the line warned, "Anne and her parents will be murdered." The caller was never identified. Police searched, but found nothing. 1 week later, the warning came true. It was the night of May 22nd, 1999. The Orderud farmhouse sat in darkness, surrounded by fields and a fringe of woods. Inside, Anne was visiting her elderly parents, Marie and Christian. Somewhere out there, in the stillness, someone was watching. Between midnight and 5 a.m., the killer made their move. They climbed onto the second-floor porch, broke the veranda window, and slipped inside. Marie was the first to hear the noise. She confronted the intruder and was shot at close range. She died instantly. Anne, in her nightgown, rushed in. Another shot. She collapsed beside her mother. The killer moved to the bedroom where Christian lay in bed. Frail, unable to defend himself, he was executed at point-blank range. The intruder left the way they came, disappearing into the night. The next morning, Christian's brother Hans arrived for a visit. He noticed the broken door. Inside, he found the bodies. 3 lives, Gone. No valuables missing. No signs of a struggle beyond the broken glass. This was no burglary. It was something else. From the start, police believed the killer knew the victims. The timing was too precise. Only a handful of people knew Anne would be there that night. It looked like the house had been under surveillance. The theory was that Anne was the main target. The others, collateral. But why? As detectives dug deeper, they found a bitter family dispute simmering beneath the surface. The Orderud farm was still legally owned by Marie and Christian, but their son, Per Christian, had been running it for years. He wanted it in his name. The disagreement had caused tension, and now, suspicion. In June, police charged 4 people: Per Christian Orderud, his wife Veronica, Veronica's half-sister Kristin Kirkemo, and Kristin's ex-boyfriend, Lars Gronerode. The prosecution's theory was stark. The murders were planned to resolve the inheritance dispute once and for all. But there was a problem. No one could prove who had actually pulled the trigger. The evidence was circumstantial. The relationships between the accused were messy, full of grudges, shifting loyalties, and half-truths. In 2001, the trial began. Norway watched. The media covered every detail. The expressions of the accused, the whispers in the courtroom, the smallest scraps of evidence. The verdict: Per and Veronica Orderud, guilty, 21 years in prison. Kristin Kirkemo, guilty, 16 years. Lars Gronerode, initially 2.5 years for weapons charges, later increased to 18 years. But even with the convictions, the central question remained unanswered. Who actually killed Anne, Marie, and Christian? Some believed the farm dispute was only part of the story. There was the so-called Balkan theory, whispers of mafia connections, weapons smuggling, and revenge. Kristin was said to have ties to the Yugoslavian underworld in Oslo. Anne and her late husband had reportedly been linked to Norwegian intelligence. Private investigators even named suspected hitmen from Sweden. But no one was ever charged. The Orderud case became the most talked about criminal investigation in modern Norwegian history. It sparked debates about media ethics, police leaks, and the way the justice system handles high-profile cases. The farmhouse still stands. The fields are still quiet. But for those who remember that night, the silence is heavy, because somewhere out there, perhaps walking free, is the person who pulled the trigger. Thank you for listening. And for more stories, subscribe to The Last Witness.